Oh, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out on this cold night. Push that button. Oh, look at that. Oh. Have you ever been there where you have that dream where your assignment's due and it's the end of the semester and you're in the class and you're naked and you're gonna fail? That's not this, but I just wanted to bring that up nonetheless. How art feeds me. I am, let's do some objectives here. Oh, I like the little beep it makes. Everybody should have objectives when they are giving a talk. I want to tonight define audiology. I'm an audiologist. I want to describe art as a practice. I want to identify the benefits of different mediums, classify art. I want to discuss the advantages of an artist agreement and creativity. I want to compare and contrast surrealism and Dadaism. I want to talk about how somebody keeps putting snow on my car, and don't you hate it when you have a PowerPoint presentation and the person just reads what's up there on the screen? I think I better just tell my story tonight. But wait, there's more. I'm a pediatric audiologist. Pediatrics, children. I work with children. Audiology is the study of hearing and hearing disorders. I think that's a boring definition. If somebody asks me what I do, I help parents answer one simple question. It's an important question. Does their child have hearing that's appropriate for learning speech and language? Do they have that building block? If you can't hear, you're probably not going to learn how to talk. A little important. Hearing test. I remember mine when I was in school. Now, I can't tell you if this is true or not, but I remember a nurse testing my hearing, and I swore. She had the hat. I swore she had a cigarette hanging out of her mouth when she was testing my hearing. But if you think about a hearing test when you were a kid, it was probably like, every time you hear a sound, raise your hand. And you've got it. Good, you've had your hearing tested. It can be very boring. My job is to make it fun. So I have a relationship with the child, and I have a relationship with the parent. I have to be a professional for the parent, and I have to be soft and silly for the kid. I stopped wearing a tie a long time ago. I don't want to look like a physician. I don't want to come at a kid and have him cry, because then I'm not going to get that question answered. This is the take-home point for the night in terms of audiology. We can test any age. There's two types of tests I do. Behavioral, raise your hand when you hear the sound, or a 3-year-old. When you hear the sound, we're going to show them how to put a block in a bucket. We're able to get all the different frequencies. A baby, how do you test a baby? So as an audiologist, I need to know what a child can do developmentally in relation to hearing. So I'll come out of the speaker, the baby will turn and look at the speaker, and I'll light up a toy or a video. And I'm able to get that frequency information. I'm also able to use machines that can measure the movement of the middle ear system, can tell me if there's a hole in the eardrum, fluid in the ear. I can test hearing that way. There's tests I can do that will tell you how the inner ear is working. I can do a complete battery on a baby, sometimes in natural sleep, sometimes sedated. But we can test any age. And why is that important? Because sometimes people will say, oh, wait until he's 2 or 3. And when that happens, it breaks my heart. Because then I have a kid that, wow, we had 3 years where we could put hearing aids on that kid and made a difference. But there were 3 years where that child wasn't hearing well. We can make a difference. I'm passionate about what I do as an audiologist. I got there through my art. I'm a photographer. See? I do two-dimensional work. Painting, some drawing. I love printmaking. I love simple techniques like a Xerox machine. And my gosh, what I can put through a Xerox machine. I'm a bookmaker. Oh, is that a book? Notice the medical influence there? I'm a poet. Wow, I have a different definition for poetry. A lot of times the definition is it has to rhyme. I like to play with words. I'm a sculptor. This show opens on Friday in the city. Anybody want to come? I have postcards outside. But a group of artists playing with a theme, Valentine's Be Mine. If you want to ask me about that, ask me afterwards. Performance. I do performance, I do videos. I love to tell stories. Oh, this was a show about saying goodbye to your Christmas tree. I drove through a Popeyes and ordered food for two. You should have seen the woman behind the window. That's great performance. Street performance, get it. So you can tell with my art, it's a big yes. Like, I can be whatever I want with art. There's no restraints. It's go, 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 yes, and what if I added this or did that. And I didn't get there overnight. I'm not talking about craft. I'm not talking about the skills. I'm talking about the mind. Let me see if I can explain it. This is embarrassing. When I was 20, my buddies and I in college, we'd reduced life to this. First you're born, then you go to school, a lot of school. Then you get a job, and you work a long time. Then you die. There's life. That's pretty sad, and that is art. No, scratch that. That is life minus art, where you don't have any real meaning. So it's interesting. I graduated with a master's in audiology, and I had an awakening. Got a job, and I'd reached the point where money in the bank, had a nice place to live, had good friends. I had money in the bank so that if the car broke down, I could have it fixed. So there wasn't that, that edgy kind of, if the car breaks down, I don't have money, that kind of thing. I had money to go on vacations and stuff like that. But I didn't know who I was. I had a job, I didn't know what for. But look at these. These are deep questions. Who am I? What's important? Oh, there I am reading it again. Oh, sorry. Why am I here? What's important to me? And those are questions you can't answer for me. I have to answer them. So I had some wonderful friends that were around me, and they helped me start looking at the lies that I was carrying. I can't do art. Got that one? Oh, the whatever. Just fill in the blank. I could never get on stage. I'm an audiologist. What happened? What do you mean my homework's due? They're all going to laugh at you. He got it. Oh, I thought they were going to steal my money. That's why they have classes. Oh, this was a good one. I used to do all these wild things, sculptures, stuff, but I couldn't own that I was an artist. So you come over to my house. I had this really interesting apartment that had this really quirky little space in the living room. And I kept looking at it, and I go, I think that'd be good for a stage. So I had a friend come over. He put some pallets down, put a little stage in there, and then I had friends come over and do poetry readings and stuff, but that's not art. That's not performance. Oh, that's a nasty one. And it's like a fine layer. Sometimes it's like an inch, sometimes it's 2 inch over the whole car. Those kids don't have anything to do. They're out putting snow on my car. So it's interesting. When I was in high school, I took a jewelry course with Mrs. Dunn. I remember her. She was wonderful. I took it because the shop class was full. I can't take jewelry, but friends were like, go take it. There was that amazing science teacher, I can't remember, to do perspective drawing. Oh, thank you. Mrs. Wadsworth. She was this woman, she looked like Betty Ford, the big hair. And she taught us critical thinking without telling us we were learning critical thinking. So there were these people there that were kind of pushing me along, saying, hey, look into this. You might be interested in this. I listened a little, but not a lot. And then I had friends around me that were saying, hey, you're an artist. Why don't you start investing in yourself? Why don't you take a class? Why don't you show your art in the show? Even if it was a coffee shop, start somewhere, do something. So I started investing in myself as an audiologist. That came later. I started investing in myself as an artist. And through the classes, here's a great one. I went to Second City and I auditioned for their training program there. And I didn't do well in the audition. And then I came back, I went into visual art. So I'm going to do sculptures and stuff. And I spent 6 months doing that. And finally I went to myself, why don't you give them a call? Why don't you ask them, hey, what do I need to audition? What skills do I need? And the guy was great. Why don't you come and just take this one class? And I went and took the class, and then I went back and auditioned and passed the audition and got in and spent a year at Second City. Second City was a great way of investing in myself as an artist, a great way of investing in myself as a visual artist, somebody that's doing sculpture and printmaking. It really gave me some fundamentals around, hey, let's go for it. Let's try it. So here I'm going to take you on a little journey. I finished Second City. I got into this wonderful program at Columbia College downtown, Interdisciplinary Artist. And when the woman said, hey, we want you to come and spend some time with us and do this program, I remember leaving there going, I can't believe it. And I actually was fearful. I remember the first class I took at Columbia College, I wrote on a notebook that I had, will he sink or will he swim? And boy, did I swim. And I just kept diving in deeper and deeper. And one of the things that art does is it gives me permission to say yes and to try different things. So I'm halfway through, actually, I finished a master's in fine arts, and I didn't feel done. So I went back and did more. And I worked for a while in a retirement community, and my job was to help people with their creativity. So as an artist, I went in, and I'm thinking, I'm going to teach these people how to do the stuff I was doing at the time, paper making, book binding, all that stuff. And they didn't want to have anything to do with it. The women wanted to knit and crochet. And so one day I broke down and I asked somebody to show me how to knit. And really that's what, as artists, we should do. We should go in places. And this is what I do now. I go into places and, hey, can you show me how to do that? And then I learned something. So I started knitting. I knit again. Now I want you to look at this as a sketchbook. A sketchbook. Well, I was sketching with knitting. And if you look up here, I'm using, I think in the middle, I think that is yarn. But then I went to string, twine, the gray is wire, the silver is foil. That was a disaster. And I love that, though. I love, like, wow, there's a problem here. And, you know, it was great. I was knitting away, and then we were doing a thing where it was all a washcloth. So you start knitting, and then you have to start reducing stitches, which is really tight. And foil doesn't do that. What if, came up, what if I made some knitting needles that were 4 feet long? And I remember actually thinking about that, and I said to myself, but you'll lose a digit. Like you'll cut your finger off with that. And so I still have these tapes in my head saying, can't do that. But I did. I can't do that. I was doing stuff that was around me. I knit a baby's cap that was 6 feet tall, so I'm 6'1". I started playing around. I had circular needles. And when I knit this in my head, I'm tired of these knitting needles. I want to do something different. So I did it again. I did it again. And I knit a scarf that's 35 feet long. You can't do that. You're in trouble for that. I knit a pair of mittens. I love it. I was giving this lecture once, and this was up at the Botanical Gardens, and I was giving a lecture to a lot of women who were into fiber and so forth. And the woman who taught me to knit was in the crowd, and I was like, and so I did this where I knit these mittens that were 9 feet tall, big enough for me to sleep in. Can't do that in a museum. And slept in them overnight. And she goes, you know, your thumb gusset's a little big there. But I love that. It was the first time I'd done, second time I'd done, first time I did big mittens. And what the funny thing about that was, here I am in this gallery in this museum, and I'm knitting, and I'm at the thumb gusset, and I'm like, I don't remember how to do this. And some lady walked in with her husband. I'm like, do you know how to knit? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, sit down, honey, show me. And she did. And that's what I love, actually, can knitting become performance? Can it become where you're interacting with an audience? So I finally did say, okay, I'm going to let the knitting needles go. And I started doing this thing where I weave with my fingers. You can't do that with garden hoses. So what happens last year? There's an international performance art festival in Chicago, and they gave me a call. And they were like, we'd like you to come. And I'm like, now, the performance I do isn't where I'm standing on stage being a character. It's me being myself and doing artwork. They were like, yeah, Patty, we know who you are. Come. So I set up the space. This is in Chicago. And I set up the space to kind of look like a hardware store. And what I would do is I'd put some improv in it. So like this woman, was walking down the street, she said, you know, I walked by and I had to come back to see what you were doing, which I just love. And I'm like, oh great, would you mind going in the window there and picking out a material? She picked out this vinyl, and then I wove it into a sculpture. And when I was doing it, my head kept saying, it's too tight and neat. And I was like, no, go crazy. And it became, this hat, and we were laughing. It was fun. Oh. This is the pumpkin that they gave me at work to decorate. You can't do that. You're going to get in trouble. So, full circle here. My next work, I'm going to do sometime this year, in September, in the city. I'm going to do a piece where I take like a chair, 17, 16, 15, 14 seconds. And I want to play around with what happens if I go in and I start covering things, growing all over. And what's key here is it makes it look like it happens in 2 seconds, but do you notice my shirt? I gave that away. Look. So what I feel blessed about is going into art and finding the courage and having wonderful people around me that supported me in being an artist. Is that it's something that goes with me. It's funny, I'm actually at the point in my life where I'm looking forward to retirement. And one thing I know, I'll have a good friend that will go with me when I finally retire as an audiologist. I'll have art. And I'll have this dialogue that I can share with other people and myself and enjoy life. And I feel really blessed. So thanks for letting me share my story.